Good evening, everyone. Thank you for watching. I've got an update for you guys on this pretty big severe weather outbreak that we've got unfolding across the Northeast, the interior parts of the Northeast, and parts of the Deep South. So we're going to be talking about both regions today. But a lot of people up here in the Northeast have been experiencing some damaging wind gusts already. You can see that we've got a line of storms that looks pretty intense just on the radar. Has been pushing its way eastward. This is also going to be stretching down into parts of New York City and Long Island. So watch out for some of those pretty intense storms if you're in southern New England, places like Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York City, Long Island, and northern New Jersey. Then we've got like another area of storms. We've got a bunch of storms moving across parts of Virginia, parts of southern Ohio, and then it is approaching parts of northern North Carolina. So watch out for some storms if you're on the coastal regions of any of those states. I know there isn't really a coastal region for Ohio, but if you're on the coastal regions of like the Delmarva area or North Carolina, like extreme northern North Carolina, watch out for some pretty intense storms tonight, as these have been staying strong throughout all of today. And I know it's pretty tough to see on radar, but we do have a growing and rapidly intensifying band of storms and bunch of storms that's been moving their way across parts of southeastern Colorado and parts of the panhandle of Oklahoma. And we already did have a tornado warning. We actually did have a tornado warning that was issued by the National Weather Service because of this. So we can obviously already tell that these storms are rotating and have been intensifying. So we're going to be moving on to our alerts. And so basically what we've got going on is we've got two areas that have been under they've been under the pressure for basically the most extreme weather and the dangerous weather. The most in which is definitely up here in the Northeast, as you can see that pretty much the entire state of Vermont is under a severe thunderstorm watch for today. And I'm going to tell you guys, just as of now, how rare it is to see, entire states under severe thunderstorm severe thunderstorm watches. And if we go in for a even closer look, you can see that most of the state is under a severe thunderstorm warning. That's even more rare, and that's just crazy to see that. So we have, that line of storms right now is doing damage as I speak. It's definitely doing damage, and that's why I'm doing this, because we have to spread the word to residents out there that, it's coming, and it's going to get very, very windy to the point where we will have some damage. But you can see that you've got three areas under severe thunderstorm watches. You've got one up here in the Northeast, including all of Vermont, down into parts of northern, central, and southern New York State. Not quite New York City and Long Island, but fairly close to you guys. So definitely means that you guys got to watch out for some storms today, or tonight, I should say. Then you also do have a flood watch for parts of extreme northwestern, northeastern New York State. Parts of like areas closer to the borderline of Vermont and New Hampshire. You guys, mostly in New Hampshire, are under a flood watch, and then a lot of Massachusetts, not quite the Boston area, but just I would say just like a few miles west of Boston, you guys are under a flood watch. A flood warning remains in effect for a few counties in central Connecticut. I know there's still a few of those lakes and rivers that are still at flood stage, and there's more rain on the way. And then you also do have a severe thunderstorm watch for areas of Kentucky, not quite Virginia, but there definitely are going to be some pretty intense storms approaching you guys. So again, you got a few areas of northeastern Kentucky, a lot of West Virginia. You can see that it's almost the entire state. So we have another huge area that is under the same severe thunderstorm watch. And then you got a few counties down here in southeastern Ohio that are under this severe thunderstorm watch. Then your third severe thunderstorm watch of the day, probably the biggest one, stretching all the way from central Minnesota down into southern and southwestern Minnesota into parts of South Dakota, moving its way into parts of western Nebraska, parts of southeastern Wyoming, also parts of northeastern Kansas, northeastern Colorado. So kind of that similar area just east of the Rockies, and then just along the northwestern border of Kansas, and moving its way into northern Texas. But that's when we run into this tornado watch, including two counties currently under tornado warning. So we're still seeing those rotating thunderstorms and supercells. And at this point, this is pretty much convincing me that we already have had at least one. We probably already have had at least one confirmed tornado on the ground somewhere in southeastern Colorado. So you gotta watch out for some storms, especially you guys in the Panhandle of Oklahoma. Tonight you're gonna get hit hard by some tornadic supercells, but they are going to be spinning, and they're gonna be trying their best to drop some tornadoes tonight. But we've got huge areas under the heat as well. We've got a heat advisory and a heat watch. Well, first we got a heat watch, which is our main. It's our biggest alert of the day, including pretty much all of Oregon, a lot of Washington State, down into Northern California, parts of California near the Sierras, pretty much all of Nevada, except for the parts that are under the excessive heat warning, parts of Utah, parts of northeastern Arizona, uh, parts of New Mexico, parts of Texas. I'm just going all around. I feel like I'm going all around the western U.S. and I'm just, stating all these states that are under this heat watch. But you can see that, entire states like Louisiana, a lot of Mississippi, a lot of Arkansas. Pretty much everyone in the southern U.S. is baking in the heat. And then you got down here in the Miami area of Florida, the Panhandle of Florida. You guys are also included in that heat watch. Then the excessive heat warning for parts of northeastern and central Texas, making its way into central Oklahoma, and then a huge area of Nevada, interior parts of California, also the coastal regions of California. Some of you guys are included in that excessive heat warning as well, and then parts of northwestern Utah and western Arizona. So this probably took several minutes to just discuss, how many alerts there are out here today. But it is one of those crazy weather days where pretty much, every type of, weather is happening all at once. And it's really hard to kind of embrace because it's just a lot to take in. So we're going to be moving on to the NAMP 3KM model for, I believe, the Northeast. And we're just going to be talking about where and what is happening in the Northeast. We already know that we have that severe weather triggered by the lower level jet, but we really want to figure out what's happening out there. So we're going to be starting out around 3 p.m. today. This was 3 p.m. today. Right now it's about 7:30, so I guess we could put this to 8 o'clock. So this was pretty much where we were this afternoon. You had some pretty intense storms, two line of storms, just northeast of the Finger Lakes region, and a lot of upstate New York. And as we continue into those evening hours of today, watch how these storms by themselves, they align into this one line of damaging wind gusts, and that tells you when that tornado threat just drops. So one thing that we could see though tonight, excuse me, is that the tornado threat will actually go down for pretty much now on. So we could definitely see a huge decrease of a tornado threat, but also we will see an increase of those damaging wind gusts. But we skip ahead to 9 p.m. So in about an hour and a half, this is the picture that we're gonna have. We're gonna have the top half of this line of damaging wind gusts break off and enter parts of southeastern Canada. And then we're going to have our main line going all the way down perfectly through the border of Vermont and New Hampshire, down into parts of western Massachusetts. And this is pretty much its weak spot. Right here in this area of western Massachusetts, this is its weak spot. This is where it's most likely to break again, if it will break again. But we obviously have to continue watching this. Then you've got another pretty intense group of storms. It's the same group of it's the same part. It's a part of the same line of storms with those damaging wind gusts, except it's obviously the farthest down south in of the storms in this line. But these definitely look like they could drop some pretty good sized hail out there across pretty much just north of New York City, the Long Island Sound, and looks like southern Connecticut. So if any of you guys are in southern New England tonight, I'm telling you, you're gonna get hit by some pretty intense storms in just pretty much an hour, because this is 9 p.m. and you're already seeing the worst of the storms by 9 p.m. And then you start getting these storms all the way down into the southern border of Connecticut. They finally, kind of weaken this line of storms will eventually break off, and all that you're left with is pretty much this main couplet of storms that's going to be moving their way down into parts of eastern Long Island. So these could definitely be supercells. They definitely look like they could be supercells. I don't think all of them are going to be weak. I mean, I don't think all of them are going to be strong. I think most of them are going to be weak. But we could definitely still have some supercells out at around 10-11 p.m. tonight. So if you're in Montauk or any area on the eastern coastal regions of Long Island tonight, you got to watch out for some pretty intense storms that could be rotating. And then this storm system eventually it kind of spreads apart, and you can see that some more areas are included in this, including northwestern Long Island, where I am. This is pretty much what we're going to be seeing throughout the rest of the night is on and off storm activity, storm activity decreasing, and then just all that stuff in between. But we will definitely see some more storms spread, maybe into the New York City metro area. You guys could get some rain tonight, but just got to watch out for anything that can happen as we get into those overnight hours of tonight. So that's going to be the kind of the picture of what we're going to be seeing today is a lot of storm activity, and then we're going to see a decrease of storm activity on and off. So it's going to take a long time to get this thing finally out of the way and off to sea. And we're still at 3 a.m. and you're still seeing some showers and thunderstorms off the southern coast of Long Island, but it's just going to be a crazy night for severe weather for pretty much everyone in southern New England and also the interior parts of the Northeast. And then for this area around the Ohio Valley, that kind of area, we go back to where we are to right now. It's about probably like 7:40. So we'll put this to 8 p.m. And you can see that the area isn't that gigantic, but it's pretty big. It's including parts of western Kentucky, eastern Kentucky, parts of western West Virginia, and you can see that these storms don't really look like they're dropping any hail right now. It looks like these storms are gonna be the tornadic storms of the day for you guys, if you will get any tornadic storms today. But they should probably bend out into a damaging wind line, and they do, but you can tell that they're not even strong enough to do that. So they're going to be very, very weak once we get to 10-11 p.m. So if you can really just get through the next few hours of today, if you're in this region down here near Virginia, West Virginia, and Kentucky, I think you should be fine for the rest of today, because these will probably diminish once we get into the overnight hours, and then you'll just have some scattered leftover showers and thunderstorms once we get into the extreme early morning hours of tomorrow. So that was day one. We go to day two. And let me tell you guys also that the forecasters at the National Weather Service actually has declared this as an atmospheric river. So, you probably think that probably sounds familiar to you, and that actually is because a few months ago we had a famous and historic atmospheric river in California, and now we're seeing that kind of same picture, but in the eastern U.S. Today, and then throughout the rest of this week. and into early next week. And basically what it is, it's surging tropical moisture coming out, coming into the onto the coastline, and it's just a bunch of stalled weak low pressure centers that stall right over the same area over and over and over again. What we call those stalled low pressure centers are waves. Well, like I like to call them waves because how a river sometimes can have waves because if it gets a little choppy. And so that's pretty much how what the deal is for now. But if you want the picture, I'll write it out for you guys. You know, so basically what you've got your lower level jet, which is driving these storms, steering them off to the northeast. This is what's putting these storms into the area that they're going into. And then you've got tons of tropical moisture coming up from the southeast that's going to be pushing its way into uh, the coastal regions of New Jersey, southern Long Island, and I'll circle the area, but this general area has been seeing the most amount of moisture in the past few hours, and it pretty much won't change to the next few days. And this is pretty much going to tell us though that the most convection in the atmosphere looks like it could be in between, somewhere right in between, in the middle of the area with the most moisture and the area closest to the strongest winds, with accompanied with this lower level jet that's going to be pushing the storms aloft. So it's looking like one target area could definitely be down here in south central New York State, and then a secondary area will pretty much be this area of Long Island, New York City, and the southern coastal regions of all these southern New England states. But as we've seen this before, with this much amount of moisture, with the California historic atmospheric river, we could definitely see pretty much the same picture, which is really, really troubling news, because it's because we just got hit up here in the Northeast. We just got hit by a devastating and catastrophic flooding event, and now we've got another flooding event, which could be potentially even worse. But it's the lingering chances for flash flooding are going to be for a few days, and so we still see this thunderstorm activity once we're getting into tomorrow. And the overnight hours of tomorrow, the most storms are definitely going to be a little bit more off to the north, including areas like southern Maine, all of New Hampshire, and a lot of Vermont. And let me just get this out of the way for you guys so you can see this a little bit more clear. But I think tomorrow's threat should be a little bit farther north, although I believe there is a marginal risk for severe weather. It's like grabbing parts of western Long Island and New York City, so you could watch out for some storms out there tomorrow. But then you get another big boom of storm spread once we get into the very, very early morning hours of, I believe, today's Thursday. I believe this would be Saturday. So you're getting into your really early morning hours of Saturday. So you're starting out with a very, very rainy weekend. But you can see that these storms look very, very impressive in along the eastern coastline of Maine. Same thing for you guys on eastern Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Long Island. You guys all will at least have a chance to see some pretty intense storms for the really early morning hours of Saturday. But look at this in Rhode Island. It's just crazy. The hail core on this storm in Rhode Island looks like it's going to be massive. So, I would really watch out for some intense hailstorms really early Saturday morning if you're in Rhode Island or southeastern Massachusetts. But that's finally going to be, the severe threat is finally going to die down, and then you're just going to have a lot of lingering moisture, a lot of lingering showers and thunderstorm activity, and then maybe some more convection in those afternoon hours. So we're going to be moving on to the south central U.S., and we're just going to be talking about kind of what the storm picture is for you guys. I know we talked about the Northeast a lot, but there is also a pretty big threat for severe weather for you guys today and tomorrow as well. So starting out around 6 p.m., this was about an hour ago, you have your first initial supercells. These are discrete cells. You can see, I can tell that because they're widely separated. They're going to, if we played through this, you can see they never get too close to each other unless they're going to form a damaging wind line. And that's going to tell us that the tornado threat is high when we see that. And so we go back to the hour where we see the most precise discrete cells, which is right now. This is 7 p.m. This is pretty much just 45 minutes ago. So we have very, very intense tornadic supercells right over northern Texas, some areas of the western panhandle of Oklahoma, and along the eastern areas of Colorado. You gotta watch out for these supercells. They're going to be causing trouble. And when I say trouble, I say like mayhem and potential tornadoes. But we get into the overnight hours of tonight, and the most intensive storms we see are going to be across northern Texas. We see two areas of damaging hail that are going to be possible. We see one up a little bit closer down to central Texas. This is going to be the southern area of thunderstorms. This one's going to be probably looking like it's going to drop the most amount of hail. And then there's another northern one just a few miles north of that, which is also looking like it's going to drop some pretty big time hail, but it doesn't look as impressive as the far southern one. But we get into the middle of the night. This is 1 a.m. Very, very intense hailstorm, including the parts of northeastern Oklahoma. Maybe this could include some metro areas of some metro of the Oklahoma City metro area. That's definitely possible to, it's definitely possible to see these storms impact the Oklahoma City metro area. And then look at this. I'm just gonna stop it now, and you probably can already tell that I'm surprised at what I'm looking at just by looking at this. I mean, it's just incredible. Look at this massive area of severe thunderstorms, flooding downpours, and then also damaging wind gusts and damaging hail. And it's all in this massive just area of northeastern Oklahoma that's just going to get hit over and over again tonight. It's crazy. And we get into those, once we get into those really early morning hours of tomorrow, we're going to see this intense area of storms really get bigger and more stronger. But, this is a ton of people in the way of this, and you could see that the characteristics of these things, we might even have to click for sounding here, but we look at the sounding and you can see that the moisture and all the dynamics are lining up perfectly right here. And you could see that you've got a stable temperature of about 70 degrees, which is favorable for it's a favorable temperature for severe weather. But we've got you got near surface strong winds, and we look and this is like 30-40 mile an hour wind gusts at the surface, so we could definitely see some pretty intense storms. And you look at the Cape, and you've got you got over 2,200 joules of kilogram at Cape, and so it's just gonna be very, very intense, and the dynamics are lining up for a few hours of a very intense group of thunderstorms to move over the northeastern areas of Oklahoma. But look, this grows and it gets still and more intense, and so I think that we might have outbreak. We might have to go into outbreak mode with this. I really do think so. I think because this is just the first. This is like the second round of storms we're going to see, and I think we could. I think we might even see a moderate risk pop up on the SPC for tomorrow. This is just. It's blowing my mind right now what I'm seeing right now. But the dynamics, they're off the charts. It's like every factor of severe weather is possible with these, and you see that the storms, they get so big that you can see that they're including parts of now western Arkansas up into parts of northeastern Oklahoma and then southern Kansas, and it already has its own low pressure center. So this is looking pretty concerning to me. So what you got to do is you got to make sure you are ready to get in your safe spot whenever these storms hit, if they're going to hit you, because they're going to hit hard. They're going to bring damaging wind gusts, hail, and then an elevated tornado threat. But they will finally diminish once we get into those late morning hours of tomorrow. And then we see another area of convection up here in southern portions of Nebraska and northern areas of Kansas, and these will try and form something, as there is a localized low pressure center right over northwestern Kansas. But it doesn't look like these are going to do much. And then you've just got a lot of surrounding areas, including parts of Mississippi, including parts of Missouri, and then up into parts of Illinois that are all going to be kind of hit by these groups and clusters of thunderstorms. But we have another round of storms move into northern Texas around Sunday. And then it's just going to be on and off storms. But you got to watch out for this one uh bunch of storms that's going to be impacting northwestern northwestern Oklahoma. This is the storm that is most concerning to me, and this is the storm that's really convincing me that we could have a slight outbreak of severe thunderstorms across parts of northern Texas, parts of eastern Oklahoma, and parts of southern Kansas. I think we could really see like a tri-state, not tornado outbreak, but severe weather outbreak. Once we get into the overnight hours of tonight, into the early morning hours of tomorrow. But we go to the SPC. This is basically This is the latest updated map of today, and so far for today we're up to an enhanced risk, but this is for that area of the interior portions of the Northeast, and you can see that you've got areas of mainly upstate New York, just east of Watertown. You've got, I don't even know how to pronounce that. Schenectady, New York. I definitely don't think I'm pronouncing that right. Utica, I don't know, Utica, New York. Saratoga Springs, New York. Rotterdam, New York, and Amsterdam, New York. All of you guys are going to be included in that enhanced risk for today. But the population, it's not as bad as it could be, because obviously the Northeast is a very highly populated area. But I mean, this is more of like a woodsy area, so I don't know if this is any close to like the Poconos, or just this is. I feel like this is a mountainous area in general. So we're lucky that there aren't that many people in the way of this, but there are still almost 2 million people in the way of this. But then that slight risk is really big, which is now shifting over to the western U.S. This is the Midwest. You've got parts of southern Minnesota down into parts of southern South Dakota, into a lot of western and northern Nebraska, making its way into Colorado, parts of western Kansas. Here it goes into the panhandle of Oklahoma and northern Texas. And then you've got a third slight risk of the day down here in the Ohio Valley, and then your one that is surrounding the enhanced risk. But we go to the tornado threat for today. You can already tell that the main threat of tornadoes is up here in the Northeast, but I think it's going to be down here in southeastern Colorado. We already saw those tornado warnings. We saw the tornadic characteristics on the thunderstorms according to the NAM 3KM model, but we also do see a 5% risk issued for tornadoes issued by the Storm Prediction Center. Now we also do have the same, another area of the United States that it's included in a 5% risk, which is here in upstate New York. This is the same area as that enhanced risk. That is going to be under that 5% risk for tornadoes tonight. But I'm going to tell you guys, there's going to be some spinning thunderstorms across parts of southeastern Colorado and then parts of upstate New York. But we go to that wind threat, you're up to a 30% risk for upstate New York, and that's a pretty big number. 30% risk for damaging wind gusts in that area. And then you've got a 15% risk for the surrounding areas of that 30% risk of upstate New York. parts of the Ohio Valley, and then that same area in that slight risk of the Midwest. So, it's just a massive, massive area that's included in, this threat for damaging wind gusts today. But you have over 18 million people that in the United States that are going to be under a 15% risk for damaging wind gusts today. And then for 5% risk, you've got almost 75 million people in the United States today that are going to be under a 5% risk for damaging wind gusts today. But there's just so many populated areas and cities in the way of this that you really want it. You just got to make sure that you and everybody are understand how dangerous this setup is, and that we're definitely going to be seeing something that we don't see usually in the throughout the year. But we go to the hail threat, and you're up to a 15% risk, except it's hatched as well, and it's just for that area of western Colorado and parts of eastern Colorado, parts of northwestern Nebraska, and then you've also got two other areas in 15% risk for damaging hail, or large hail, I should say, including parts of the Ohio Valley and parts of upstate New York. So that's going to be pretty much it for the day one outlook. Here's the day two outlook as of right now. You have a slight risk for that area of northeastern Oklahoma I was talking about. Now, when I said that, we were probably going to see, a very, very intense outbreak of severe thunderstorms across this, slight risk area for a few hours. I'm kind of surprised that we don't have an enhanced risk on the table right now. I think we're definitely going to get an enhanced. I would be very surprised if we didn't get an enhanced risk for tomorrow. But the National Weather Service might leave this as a slight risk just because of how early these storms are going to be impacting tomorrow. But personally, for me, I would definitely issue an enhanced risk, which would be a level 3 out of 5. But you got to definitely listen to these guys at the Storm Prediction Center. They know what they're doing. But, you've also got a marginal risk for severe weather that stretches throughout parts of the parts of the southern New England. This is including a lot of Massachusetts, all of Connecticut, Rhode Island. This is including parts of southern New York State, all of Long Island, New York City. This is including New York City, all of New Jersey, down into the Delmarva area, down into Virginia, and then parts of northern North Carolina. But for that marginal risk, you've got major cities like New York City, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Detroit, Michigan, Baltimore, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. Then you've also gotten that slight risk, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Wichita, Kansas, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, and Edmond, Oklahoma. So tomorrow's tornado threat, you have less than 2% in all areas. So I don't expect any tornado. It looks like that we won't have any tornadoes, or chances for tornadoes throughout tomorrow, but I don't expect any tornadoes to touch down tomorrow personally. And our wind threat, you're up to a 15% risk for that same area of that slight risk, including northern parts of northern Oklahoma and south central Kansas. And then that hail threat is the same area as our categorical outlook, as you have your slight risk in the same area as your hail risk, and you have your marginal risks in the same area as your 5% risk. So we're going to be moving on to the NAM 3KM model for basically how strong these winds are going to be in the lower levels of the atmosphere, because we obviously have that lower level jet that's going to be driving these storms throughout the rest of tonight, and they're also going to be packing in a lot of that wind energy that's going to be creating these damaging wind gust lines. But we see that very close. This is very close to the ground level. I'm telling you guys, this is not that far. This is like just a few thousand meters up in the air. You have winds that have been reaching into the 50s. So in southern Canada, then into the 30s and 40s up in upstate New York, just north of the Finger Lakes region. So that tells us that tonight we're going to still see this damaging wind gust potential persist throughout the night. But we see this intensification with the lower level jet. But what's concerning with that tornado threat is that we see these small like dots. You see these small dots of red and orange. Those are supercell thunderstorms that are, they're creating a lot of wind, which is creating updraft, which, that puts tornadoes into the picture. So, you could see this is 5 p.m. This was 5 p.m. today. We're not this was we already passed this hour, but this was earlier today. It looks like we have favorable conditions for tornadoes, but we skip ahead to where we are now. We don't really see much of that anymore, but we still see one broad area which currently is under a severe thunderstorm warning. But a broad area of, looks like we could even have rotation here, of some pretty intense winds. Not that high up in the atmosphere, but you know this will eventually move off with the storm. You had your low pressure wandering off up here in Canada, and you still got your lower level jet that's going to be, it's going to be kind of moving due east after the storm gets out. It's going to be moving due east, and then you can see it all of a sudden takes a ride and comes shooting up north, which is going to be, and that's what those winds are going to be. What's pushing this storm up into Canada and out of the way. And we skip ahead into tomorrow. We get into the late morning hours of tomorrow. We don't see nearly as much wind energy, but then you start seeing these little supercell thunderstorms start popping off areas of northwestern uh, Massachusetts, parts of Rhode Island. Then those move off into Maine, and then we might see some more tornadic supercells throughout the rest of this week. But the main threat is definitely going to be damaging wind gusts. It's looking pretty crazy, and it's not looking good for residents in the Northeast. And then we also have the declared atmospheric river, which we got to talk about in future updates. I'm going to try and fit one in tomorrow, but I really want to make sure that everyone understands how dangerous the situation is. That we not only have an elevated, severe thunderstorm threat, but we also do have a flooding threat, as we just had catastrophic flooding, and after that catastrophic flooding, we have more rain on the way. That's just going to be dumping down into some very largely populated areas. And then for the last two parts of the video, we're just going to be kind of talking about the ingredients for what's driving this storm system, or not quite what's driving it, but kind of, what's creating all the severe weather, what's behind it. It's kind of the backstage view of the severe weather. But for now we're going to be looking at. Looks like this is going to be the Cape for it. So this is basically kind of going to tell us where which places are going to be seeing the most favorable conditions for severe thunderstorms, and where's the atmosphere the most unstable. So based off looking at this map, it's going to tell you kind of, where the higher the number, the higher the units of Cape are. And the higher the units of Cape are, the more unstable the atmosphere is in that area. So when you see these reds, these pinks, and sometimes even these whites, that's showing you guys that that's where severe weather is very likely. But what's interesting, though, is that you don't see that crazy amount up here in upstate New York. You do have some purple down here, which is, it's about 4,200 joules kilograms of Cape. But look at this, just south of New York City, like just south of southeastern or southwestern Long Island. This is just off the coast of New Jersey. You're in the 5,000s for joules of kilograms of Cape. So it's going to be very, very we're going to see very, very intense conditions throughout the rest of tonight for this area. But you can see that it's the same for pretty much all these southern areas of these states, including a lot of Long Island, a lot of northern New Jersey, southern Connecticut, southern Rhode Island, and southern Massachusetts. But you can see up here in upstate New York, you're in the 4,000s. We continue this throughout the night. Let me just get it going here, and it's quickly going. You can see the number quickly goes down, but you're still in the 2,000s and 3,000s for some of you guys, and some of you guys can still stay in the 4,000s. So you're still going to have that severe weather threat and the unstableness in the atmosphere continue into the overnight hours of tonight. Now you're getting into tomorrow, and the area with the highest number of CAPE is definitely going to be across parts of southern Connecticut, a lot of Long Island, New York City, and goes through parts of northern New Jersey, and then obviously eastern Pennsylvania, and then we continue throughout the rest of tomorrow into Saturday. And this is kind of where we see that second ramp up of severe weather, because you could see that quickly, almost instantaneously, we see a quick ramp up of Cape, but this is including more widespread areas, and a lot more people are going to be seeing favorable conditions for severe weather. But we're going to continue this throughout the rest of kind of this event, and just on and off you see these waves of CAPE come through, and that's pairing with that moisture that's being driven from this atmospheric river. And it's a lot of things that we have to talk about, but there's so many parts of the dynamics of this that when they all line up specifically, some bad things happen with the atmosphere, and this is what we're seeing in result of it. So it's going to be a very dangerous situation, but we can definitely get through it safely if everybody out here knows what's happening and that they take this seriously and understand how dangerous this is. But we go to the last part of the update, which I believe is going to be this map just showing you guys the number, the chances of, significant tornadoes. I think we're going to be looking at the significant tornado map. And so here you go. You got significant tornado parameter, and so you can see that once we get to the hour that we're at, I guess right now. So let's see. This is pretty much right around now. With this, just starting off with this map, you can tell that it's pretty much the same as the Cape. The higher the number for units of significant tornadoes, the more likely chances there are for a significant tornado in that area. So as of now, it's looking like just west of the Finger Lakes region in central New York, you guys are probably going to see the highest of tornado threats. And most favorable conditions for tornado threats of right now. But as this storm moves off into Canada, look at this in southern Canada. I don't know if there's any major cities out here. Maybe Quebec is a little bit close to this. But you're almost up to 3 units of significant tornadoes. So there's a pretty good you have a pretty good shot at seeing tornado, not only a tornado touchdown in this area, but also possibly a significant tornado touchdown in this area. So you could wake up tomorrow, look at the news, and then realize that a pretty bad tornado touchdown in upstate New York. It's that kind of situation, which is really not good. But I'm just gonna continue this throughout the rest of tonight, and you can see that it's pretty much after 9 p.m. is when it dies down. And you can see that it quickly kind of slows down, and then maybe another area of rotation could enter areas just north of New York City and Long Island, and it may have a shot at producing a tornado. It's just extremely unlikely. And then that's going to be pretty much it for the rest of today. So that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for coming to watch, and that's going to be pretty much it for today's update. But the summary of today is basically just watch out for this severe weather. We're going to have rounds of severe weather because it is a summer atmospheric river. We're going to definitely continue seeing this flooding threat. But it's a lot of weather to take in, which you got the heat, the extreme heat, you got the severe weather, and you've got the flooding risk with the atmospheric river. So it sounds like a lot, but all you got to do is stay safe, pay attention to your local National Weather Service alerts, and make sure you are prepared for whatever weather comes your way. So don't be scared, be prepared, and have a great night, and we'll see you guys in the next video.